And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage. And you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. I've been excited to get today's guest scheduled for a while because Freddie's an old friend. We go back, I don't know, 10 plus years. So my guest today is Freddie Ravel. Freddie shares the lessons that he's learned by giving his clients the vital tools to live their own life in tune. He's, as far as I know, the guy that's invented the term keynote concert, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. He's got a musical career that's amazing. So he's worked with Sergio Mendes. He's directed Earth, Wind, and Fire. He's been on the big screen with Madonna. He's played for all over the world with Carlos Santana, with Prince. The only one here on the list that we may ask you to apologize for, Freddie, is Kanye, but we won't go there. And then he's and he's also worked with J Lo and Lady Gaga. And today he's here with us. He's also an author, and here he is. So welcome aboard, Freddie. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Peter, thank you for having me. It's great to be with you. And I well remember the days that we first connected in San Francisco. So it's a pleasure to be with you again.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. So let's dive in. So you're a Grammy-winning musician that's worked with, as I mentioned before, some of these amazing, amazing, amazing folks, and had a long-standing and still have a long-standing career as a musician. And then you sort of evolved, you sort of your passion, your love, your expertise for music with the people side of it, right? In the sort of keynote-y thing, but not as a keynoter. And I've had the privilege of seeing you live several times in what I would call sort of the keynote concert. So let's talk about how that concept was born, if you will. Where did that come from?
Well, thank you. What a lot of people don't know is that certain artists that you work with really are thought leaders in of their own. Someone like Earth, Wind, and Fire, they're kind of credited as the band that brought Black and White America together. And so it's been a really, really great evolution for me to work with them because they were already talking about keeping your head to the sky. They were already talking about motivation, they were already singing about it from the mid 70s. By
Sure.
the time I became their musical director, their music was laced with human potential. It was filled with that message of elevating humanity. And then you fast forward to the years I worked with Carlos Santana, and he's kind of part of that same tribe, Peter.
Yeah.
It, in other words, all these musical artists I worked with, many of them were messaging how to live in a more positive light in their music.
So instead of doing it through the way that we traditionally think of quote thought leaders doing it today, speaking, books, etc., their medium was music, right? And I would agree. I just saw Santana recently over the summer, and you listen to what he says, and then you put it in the context of the period of time when that first came out, Woodstock, post Woodstock, and whatever what the country was looking for. Really cool stuff. But I never really put the two together in terms of them being thought leaders, right? You always just think of them as rock stars.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but like when I was touring with Carlos, the title of the tour was "The Universal Tone." Right? Like, so Peter, that instantly you go, okay. He's basically saying, the light in me recognizes and honors the light in you. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's a summary of that idea. But think about it for all my colleagues in the world of speaking. What we're doing is we're helping people understand how they can maybe collaborate better. We're helping companies have breakthroughs in new ways to see the future and new ways to see abundance and success. And for me, I've always seen a parallel between great music making and great team building, great teamwork, and the idea that, we're all better together when we listen. So I hang my hat on the world of listening
Yeah.
as a pivot of the one common lane that music and human potential, thought leadership, team building, time management, all those skills that we teach from the platform. I feel that listening skills is the common lane that music and human potential share.
I love that. So, but I want to push a little bit on what your keynote experience is versus the typical. So, typical keynote experience, someone that's very accomplished, very smart, probably charismatic, gets up there and talks about their stuff, right? They do it in an engaging, entertaining way. You learn a bit along the way. Maybe they're funny, maybe they're serious, maybe they're sharing research, etc. There are very few people that do what you do in terms of the music. So there are, Eric Wall does it with art. Dan Thurman does it with. He was a street performer that during his keynotes he's on a unicycle and doing balance and things. But I want to talk about sort of describe the experience of what a keynote concert is as compared to, my brain goes somewhere when you say, all right, Peter, tomorrow at 3 o'clock you're going to go see so and so keynote. So you shake that whole thing up. So tell us about that.
It's kind of reminds me a little bit about what a pastor once told me in church. He said, it takes us about when we come up on the pulpit in church, it takes us about 20 minutes to get the audience in our hands. But when you do music, when our choir goes up and starts singing, in about 10 seconds, the entire room is clapping, singing, and smiling.
Sure.
If you kind of think of it like that, that to me is the huge advantage of entering with music. You instantly can win the crowd over. So, of course, my thing opens up just like a concert. It starts off with a big track of pumping music, and the first thing I do is run up to that keyboard and start jamming on it.
Yep.
But within about a minute, the audience is sometimes on their feet or just screaming and clapping.
They're usually coming out of a state of boredom, being in a typical, 2-day conference or something, right? So it's a nice energy release as well for them.
Bingo. I mean, exactly right. So much. I always felt that the speaking world needed to be shaken up.
Yep.
I always felt that a term that is finally becoming kind of more mainstream now is edutainment.
Yep.
Idea of mixing entertainment and education. So I use something that I think that old pastor whispered in my ear 40 years ago, the music will win an audience in a matter of seconds, whereas speaking takes 5, 10, 15 minutes to get really into a beautiful rhythm.
So that's that's the tainment part. That's the entertainment part. But what I love about your stuff is, yes. So, I hear music and then you get up there and you're smiling and you're jamming on the keyboards and people are rocking and rolling, whatever. And immediately now my brain goes to, oh, cool, this is just going to be a lot of fun. Like, I'm going to jam out with Freddie, right? Like, this is cool. I dig that music. But then you sort of hit us with the educational piece. Tell us what you hope or aspire people take away from the concert other than the music was wonderful. Because the educational piece is so strong.
Yes, thank you. Well, here's the thing. The pivot is, as soon as I'm done, I say thank you in about 15 different languages.
Right.
Yep. And then I say thank you in all these languages because we live in a world of global international opportunities.
Yep.
And thankfully, we have the world's undisputed international language of music to inspire us to pursue those opportunities. There's the link.
Excellent.
Right?
Excellent.
That's how in literally 10 seconds, we flip from, kind of jamming on a concert to now we're going to talk about the world's oldest language. It's been around before words ever existed, music. And because it communicates to all people in all cultures, I want to unpack some of the tools that musical artists have used to win over audiences in every country on the planet.
Awesome.
That's kind of the portal that we enter, and that's the way we link it. And then you mix this the way I tend to do it, Peter, is I tend to do a combination of the beauty of music. I might play Chopin for a second or Mozart.
Yep.
Or go to J-Lo or go to Bruno Mars.
Yep.
It kind of depends. There's a lot of homework that's done on the audience and the age demographic I'm speaking to, of course.
Sure.
And of course, as you know, in our world, to all my fellow thought leadership people, we all know that the game has shifted a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. It's now not uncommon to be speaking, looking out to the audience, and people are looking at a flat screen.
Yeah,
part of
exactly. Or that
they might be. Hopefully, they're taking notes.
Well, or the awful blue reflection on their faces as they're peeking down to their phones, looking, whatever, which has become acceptable.
It has unfortunately become acceptable. However, we really, I've noticed that I get very little of that because if you keep switching between music and message,
right,
it's sort of, not to oversimplify the concept, but you're going kind of right brain, left brain, right? We're going from the creative to the analytical, creative, analytical, and like a church service, you get the message, you get the sermon of the day, and then boom, we're going to sing a song that lifts your hearts. And I believe that if you can keep human beings moving around, I learned this from Maurice White, the founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and one of the great legends of music. And he said, Freddie, always use the chakras. The root chakra is rhythm. If you got them tapping their feet, they're feeling the rhythm. But then, if you go to their head, you're using their intellect, you're using their mind.
Yep.
So for me, it's about flipping the emotional, let's just call it the fuel of the talk, and flipping it about every 5 to 10 minutes. That's why it's a keynote and a concert. Why I call it a keynote concert, because you're flipping between both lanes every 5 to 10 minutes.
That's fantastic.
Storytelling, case studies.
And then you're integrating business stories. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So I want to move for a minute, Freddie, to the business side of this, because lots of things have changed on the business side of speaking in the last 3 years, 5 years, certainly 10. So talk to us a little bit about where business is originating from, the use of the bureaus. One of the things in your work that makes it maybe a little bit more complicated or a potential challenge to a meeting planner is the musical piece, right? I can't just hand you a lav mic and say, okay, do your thing, right? Like there's more logistical pieces there. But tell us on the business side, sort of where business is originating from, what you've done there to stay top of game, et cetera.
Okay. The business side has come from, it's amazing, Peter. I know it's been a little bit since we've spoken, but we're getting consistent bookings in about 8 different sectors right now. These sectors would be, let's just say, media, financial services, which of course is insurance and banks and all those things.
Yep.
And then a whole bunch of stuff in healthcare and wellness, like Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
Okay.
I just got back from Singapore. I presented to Prudential,
Very cool.
the insurance side of their business. But that audience was from 16 different countries, including China and Thailand and Brazil, of all places, and a lot of people from Korea. And we had 5 translation booths in the back. So what other sectors? Of course, tech and retail. And my next engagement, I'm speaking to people in the manufacturing of surfaces for kitchens. Then after that, it's Ernst and Young. So I have what I'm trying to say is that this message of how do we become better listeners and thereby become better collaborators is such a universally needed message in a world of a great deal of challenges with diversity and inclusion, challenges with disruption. The demand for people to become more collaborative is higher than ever.
So part of the message in your work is the collaboration piece. So, on the one hand, you're saying there's a concentration of industries, but on the other hand, I'm hearing, it's universal, right? Right. So, I mean, there's a huge difference between the composition of a, financial services group and a healthcare group in terms of what their days look like, what their workload looks like, what their educational levels look like. So where is most of your business coming directly to you, or is it more through the bureaus, or just give us a sense of what that looks like?
At the moment and at present, it's with a wide variety of great bureaus, some
Okay.
of the top bureaus in our industry. And I have, I call them sort of my extended family of advocates that are out
Yep.
there from all different, there's probably, as you know, there's probably about 20 really big bureaus that
Yep.
dominate the industry. And I work pretty much with all of them and have struck great relationships. It's taken years. It's to build it, as you know.
Yep.
This doesn't happen overnight. It's a lot of just steady as she goes. But I'm very happy to tell you that just outstanding relationships with all the bureaus.
So I want to talk about that because a lot of speakers don't realize the stress, and they don't really have empathy for the agents in terms of their transaction junkies, their deal people. They're moving at a certain speed and a certain cadence and living up to the demands of the clients. What would you tell a speaker that is in the process, or maybe has been listed with a bunch of bureaus, about how to make it easy for the agent to call you. Meaning, they could look at their roster and go, ooh, like don't want to call, like that guy's a pain in the butt, right? Versus, ooh, there's Freddie. Like, how do you make yourself easy to work with? How do you help make them successful?
Okay. I think first and foremost is you have to be really clear on your offering, right? Be really clear. Like, this is what I have specialty in, and this is the prop, be the plumber who can fix the leak. Like, be
Yep.
very specific about what you can do. If you are all things to all people, everybody will perceive that as jack of all trades, master of none.
Yep.
So it's very important to be very clear on your offering. I'll be honest, it took me many years, Peter, to figure out how to drill down. I always got the call because people like the entertainment value. But once I identified the specific problems to address, then everything changed.
So, but give me an example of the specific problem. You're talking about the client at a point in time, that this client's going through a growth issue or a merger, or is that what you mean?
No, I'm talking about the Bureau's perception of what my offerings are.
Ah, got it. Got it. How to articulate it. Yep.
Right. I'm staying with your original question about
Yes.
bureaus.
Yes. Okay.
So in other words, it's kind of like if you're a speaker and you can provide your bureau with like a one sheet. Hey, I offer 2 or 3 programs. One's about leadership. Another one's about team building and collaboration. Another one's about time management, for example. And then you have a paragraph about why you're the right person
Yep.
and why you have the expertise. And then you put like 2 or 3 bullet points.
That's it. Right. Right.
Because here's the reality. Most people are not even going to read the paragraph that you put together. They're going to read the bullet points.
Let alone
So
your book, right?
not on your book. So actually, the way I think the world is now is a meeting planner or someone calling you may very well just pick up their phone, their iPhone or something, and they'll look at your site in a little tiny screen. And I think you got to show your golden bullet points of your offerings within 30 seconds, or
Yeah.
you're not going to get the gig.
Okay, so that's the communication, but talk a little bit about the interactions, because I find it shocking, with a lot of my speaker clients early on, where a bureau will reach out to them and it's 4 days later until they respond. like,
Oh yeah.
like the importance of timeliness, the importance of just being easy to work with.
Yeah. Case in point, I got 3 calls this morning for 3 different dates. One came through WhatsApp from Mexico.
Yep.
Okay. That happens in this world now. Another one came from WeChat from China. Another one came in from another bureau on the East Coast, right? They all want to know yesterday the question they're asking me today. So I have almost all of them have my cell number.
Yep.
Almost all of them have permission to text me because texting is faster
Yep.
because I can usually respond on the fly. And then I have an assistant, Paul Rodriguez, who, when I'm completely missing in action,
Yeah. Right. Right. Or you're on an airplane, or you're just.
or I'm on an airplane and I
Yeah.
have an assistant. But I will tell you that almost all the agents, ideally, if they can talk to me, they always feel better because they're getting it from the horse's mouth.
So, but let's talk about that. So, I think a lot of folks have, some of it's out of necessity, sort of people around them to handle it, but nothing sells the product like the product, right? And it doesn't mean you need to be involved in every logistical conversation and the contracting stuff, but to hear your voice, to hear it confirms to them that they put their trust and faith in you to be able to put you forth in front of a client, right? And I think sometimes people underestimate that, and they've got gatekeepers and all that, and it's like, the agents, they're trying to get a deal done on your behalf.
Yeah. So I think you gotta make sure that I think the first word to think about with bureaus is the word partner. When they're trying to get a meeting planner when they're trying to sell you, the speaker, to a meeting planner, the meeting planners in their mind are going, "Holy cow! I've got 20 different speakers I'm looking at right now, but I got to make a decision yesterday.
Yep.
I don't have any more time. The theme of my event is this.
Yep.
Oh my God, I like the guy who climbed Mount Everest. I like the skin diver. I like the Navy SEAL. I like the girl who just got off the Air Force.
Right.
Right? They're looking at all that.
And astronauts are always cool.
Astronauts are always cool, right? They're looking at all these things, right?
Right.
What I think the most important thing is to give them the confidence that you care so much about the outcome.
Right.
So one of the leading things in my work is customization.
Yeah.
That and the other one is I'm pretty detailed oriented, and I'm very I really want to know the biggest problems they have. So I think sending out a questionnaire before you have a conference call is huge,
Yep.
and understanding all their their tender and vulnerable spots.
Right. And not treating the event like a drive-by, really putting the energy and effort in to realize that for this company or this association at this point in time, this may be one of their biggest events of the year, and you've got an obligation to be of service to them.
You do. And I think that if you get their permission, this is important because sometimes they don't want you to mention their name. But often you're working with the chief marketing officer. That's the CMO is very typical. Sometimes the CFO, and in rare cases, the CEO of the company,
Yep.
depending on the size of the company. But you're always working with those people. And if you can find, address them, identify their name, and talk about, hey, I was speaking with Sarah, who I know is the head of your marketing, and she was expressing to me all the great breakthroughs you've had this year. Wow, what an amazing year Bank of America had. I'm being hypothetical right now. But going into 2020, we realize that, things like outsourcing, things like
Sure.
screen time, these are the challenges that your industry is kind of wrestling with. So today, as Sarah explained to me when we spoke on the phone last month, and I look at her in the eye, she's in the audience, she's smiling, I'm identifying their people in front of me.
Yeah.
That shows the audience, hey, he did his homework. He knows who we are, and he cares. That's the biggest thing we can show our client, Peter, is that we actually
Yep.
care.
And the best way to do that is to show you've done the homework. So I want to, we're just out of time here, Freddie, but I want to just thank you for coming on board. Thank you for sharing your story and your insights, and wishing you nothing but continued success, my friend. So thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
My pleasure. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.